There are two things today that people are paying attention to that might cause a movement in the price of XRP. We have Jerome Powell's CPI report. If that turns out positive, which people are doubting it would, then that could boost the price of crypto across the board, fundamentally Bitcoin, and then of course, as a matter of effect, all the other cryptocurrencies. The second one has an even higher potential to really get the prices going. If ARK Invest ETF suddenly got approved, like some people are predicting it would, I don't think it's going to happen, but who knows? If it does happen, then people are saying that the price of Bitcoin might see even up to a 50% boost. That is a little bit crazy sounding to me, but you never know in this world of crypto. Now, if that were to happen and Bitcoin were to experience a 50% boost, then there is no doubt that XRP is going to see a significant move up, right? Because XRP does as Bitcoin does at the moment. It's sort of like a sibling with, the little brother following the big brother around, in the playground. They just do what Bitcoin does. When all the big whales decide they've made enough money in the Bitcoin pump, they expect the other altcoins to pump. So they basically flow the money into the big caps and then down the, market capitalization table. So there's no doubt that XRP will see a massive boost if that were to happen. Of course, if the reverse happens, then we might see a negative action. So anything can happen. But all of that stuff is relatively short term, to be honest, with the exception, of course, of the ETF, because going forward, it means that BlackRock ETF is going to be approved sooner rather than later, which means a lot of these whales are going to go in and start buying. Now, instead of focusing my attention on that, I usually focus my attention on things that are slightly longer term. And one of those things I'm going to show you in this video. Now, this video was tweeted by Ripple's official X account. It's still weird to call it X rather than Twitter, but you know what I mean. So let's play it and I'll talk about it as we play it. So this is Hong Kong, right?
My name is Kiri Bhatia. I'm the head of international business development for Ripple, which includes the incredibly dynamic region of Asia Pacific. Hong Kong is a very special place for me. It's where I've had pivotal moments in my career and also where my children were born. That's why it's really exciting to see the growth and adoption of crypto here. Hong Kong has always been one of the most important and bustling financial centers globally. Today, it is also one of the biggest cities per capita for developers and for blockchain-related investments. That's why Ripple's work in the city is so important.
Wait, let me just back that up a little bit. See that? Look at this landscape. Keep that in mind for what I'm going to say in a minute. Also, this is obviously Hong Kong, but he is the head of business in Asia Pacific. So that includes China, it includes Singapore, which are quite interesting as well. And I'm going to talk about those also a bit later on.
We're working with businesses and financial institutions to move, manage, and tokenize value. We're now working closely with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to pilot a CBDC project tokenizing real-world assets.
Did you hear that? Let's play that again. He said it really quickly, but it's crucial. Listen again.
To pilot a CBDC project tokenizing real-world assets.
Real-world assets. Remember that.
On Ripple's CBDC platform, built with the XRP Ledger technology. With forward-thinking regulators and the momentum around crypto development, it's truly exciting to see what the future holds in Hong Kong.
Did you hear that? So what he's saying in that video is that Ripple is working with pretty much the government of Hong Kong, effectively the government of China, and working on a CBDC, e-HKD, I think it's called, Hong Kong dollar, on the XRP Ledger. Okay, so we have the CBDC angle there. But more than that, we have the real world asset tokenization via the CBDC. Now, why is this important and why is this going to be big? The answer actually lies more in China than in Hong Kong. Now, what's happened in the last couple of decades or so in China is that China has moved from what you can call a poor country with most people living under the poverty line to being a world power, and a lot of people moving from poverty to being middle class, right? It's the largest movement of people from poor to middle income I think we've ever seen in history. And that was achieved very, very quickly in the last few decades. And now what happens with people moving from being poor to being middle income is that they aspire to own property. That's just fundamental, right? China is no exception. A lot of the Chinese middle class found themselves with a lot of disposable income. For the first time, found themselves able to afford property, or at least the way it was presented to them. And as usual, much like anywhere else in the world, the banks and the lending companies and the real estate institutions spiraled way out of control. And people were given mortgages that they would never be able to pay. I mean, there was a lot of construction that happened in China. China pretty much is the master constructor in the world. So you can imagine how much construction in terms of real estate went on in China. In fact, so many properties were put up that even with the Chinese population of 1 billion plus, a lot of these properties remained empty. As it is typical of global greed, of course, a lot of our financial institutions in the West also got involved over the decades in Chinese real estate. So a lot of our money is actually locked up in Chinese real estate. A lot of those properties now are in negative equity. A lot of people are living in properties that they can never afford to pay in a lifetime. Perhaps their grandchildren will be paying those mortgages. I'm sure you remember here in the West when we had the subprime mortgage crisis around 2008, I think it was, caused a global crash. I'm sure you remember just about a year to 2 years ago when the world was suddenly in a bit of a panic that China was going to crash because the real estate situation in China was getting out of control. The banks were becoming insolvent and the Chinese government had to move in to bail out the banks or they were going to crash. Like most of the world, probably worse in China, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and other factors. They're in dire straits. People are broke. No one has any money to pay for anything. People are defaulting on their loans and mortgages. There's a lot of liquidity issues that are happening in China. I'm not surprised then that China is enthusiastic about seeking liquidity wherever it can get it. Now, one of the ways of doing that is tokenizing pieces of property, real life assets, on something like a blockchain ledger and allowing people from around the world to provide liquidity for buildings in China and in Hong Kong. Now, say for example, I own property that I got a mortgage for 15 years ago and I got a 10x or 100x mortgage. I can either remortgage my property back to the bank, but if the bank is insolvent, they can't help me or they can't provide the financial instrument that I need for that. I can sell it to somebody else, but that somebody else is in the same situation as me. They don't have any money. So my property is going to sit on the market for years. No one has enough money to buy. None of the banks would give mortgages out because they're insolvent and a credit rating is in the gutter. I could, of course, become homeless and just move out or sell it for peanuts. This is obviously not desirable. So tokenizing my property on, say, an XRP Ledger and having people around the world buy tokens representing my property. So I can stay in my property, but people around the world can buy and sell effectively shares in my house. That way, the liquidity that I need has been released. I can take the money and do what I need to do with it. And my house is now owned by tens of thousands of people around the world. They don't care about my house. They don't want me to move out. They don't want to come and live in my house. All they care about is the value of my property over time. They can trade it amongst themselves. They can hodl it forever if they want. But the point is, I now have liquidity and I don't have to end up on the streets. This helps me. This helps the banks. This helps the economy. It helps the government. It's sort of like a massive win-win situation. Now, why would this happen on XRP and not on Ethereum or Polygon or Solana? After all these other platforms have this technology as well. However, do they really? Ethereum is way too expensive for this. I think the gas fees alone would discourage anybody from doing any transactions of this magnitude on Ethereum. There's Polygon, there's Solana, but all these technologies have their issues, right? Anyway, there's no point speaking arbitrarily when in real life things are already in motion. Ripple to demonstrate tokenization in HKMA e-HKD pilot program using new CBDC platform. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority is looking at real CBDC use cases, such as equity release of tokenized real estate assets with Ripple's new CBDC product. Ripple will participate in the Hong Kong Monetary Authority's HKMA's Digital Hong Kong Dollar Central Bank Digital Currency Pilot Program by showcasing a real estate asset tokenization solution. The company will reveal its new CBDC platform at the same time. Ripple will partner with Taiwan's Fubon Bank and others to demonstrate equity release with tokenized assets. The retail version of the CBDC equity release, also known as a reverse mortgage, is the practice of a lender letting a homeowner access the equity in their home, with payment coming due only when the house is sold or the borrower dies. Tokenization can reduce friction in the equity release process and speed throughput for banks. Ripple said in a statement, the company is participating in so-called second rail of the program, which will take deep dives into use cases as well as application, implementation, and design issues relating to e-HKD, according to HKMA. So the general gist of that is Hong Kong as well as Taiwan are working with Ripple to try and implement providing liquidity through this equity release program by tokenization. As we all know, XRP's whole point is to be a liquidity generator. So it's a bridge between currencies and provides liquidity for cross-border payments. Now, while CBDCs and cross-border payments are sort of what everyone is talking about, in my opinion, the real money is going to come from real asset tokenization, particularly in the APAC region. And this really excites me. In terms of timescale though, this isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. It might not even happen for a couple of years or so, but we will see it getting kick-started definitely in the very near future. These things usually take time. Governments have to make sure that they perform all the experiments and test pilots that they need to. But the fact that Ripple is sort of bang in the center of all of this kind of shows you where they're going. Also, I did a video earlier on, I don't know if you've seen it, about why particularly Asia, Singapore, APAC region have rejected the other cryptocurrencies that would be XRP's rival in this. Solana, Cardano, Polygon, Ethereum, because of all the speculative issues that we've had in the market. They don't like tokens that are over speculated. I know XRP itself is speculated in the market, but by core design, it wasn't really designed for speculation. It was designed for liquidity provision via the various liquidity systems that are in the works. On-demand liquidity, automatic market maker, cross-border payment liquidity, assembly line liquidity, and now real-world asset tokenization. Non-financial advice as usual. Do your own research, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.